Yes. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah. Please, can you repeat what you said, please? I didn't quite get what you said.
Yeah, I was asking that, if we look at the build-up, usually there are 4 applicable factors or factors under consideration, i.e. inflation, exchange rate, natural gas cost, and others. But this time around, when you put out your release, we are seeing 7 factors, including 3 new ones: cost of fuel, which you are looking at, the liquid fuel, as well as reserve capacity. We want to understand why you considered these 3 new factors in your analysis.
Okay, thank you very much. The last time we did this tariff, we said that we had an accumulated debt of 976 million declared. And in the wisdom of the commissioners, they took on board 50% of that debt. So that means that half of it, which was 488, was taken in the last tariff. In this current tariff as well, we promised that we're going to clear the other half, which is 50%. So the outstanding 488 million accrued from the last 3 quarters, we are clearing it in this quarter. That's one of them. We added 27% of liquid fuels. The gas that we have is insufficient to power all the thermal plants. So we buy liquid fuels. They like crude oil, heavy fuel oil, distillate fuel oil. We buy all those fuels to power the thermal plants. So we took 27% of that. In the wisdom of the commissioners, we cannot afford everything. So government is taking the other percentage. So we passed through 27% of that because on a monthly basis, the utility providers need so much money in terms of dollars to be able to buy liquid fuel to power the thermal plant. So we have to make room for that. And we also have to make room for the reserve margin in case we need the stability and the reliability for the system to improve or the consumers to be able to benefit from whatever it is that the providers are giving to us. So we have to consider those 3 extra factors just to make sure that we cater for them in this current tariff. That's how come we added 3 more of those factors.
So in your understanding, which of these factors actually push the close to 2.5% adjustment, upward adjustment that we are seeing? Which of these 7 factors really push the PRC to slap consumers with 2.5% price adjustments in tariffs?
Okay. If we did not consider the other 3 factors which I mentioned, that is the debt of 488 million, plus the reserve margin, plus the fuel, there would have been a reduction in tariff. However, because we considered this one, if you consider these extra 3 factors, the one which really pushed the tariff into the 2.45 is the extra debt of 488 million.
Now we want to understand this debt, the almost 500 million cedis. Is it a debt owed by the energy sector as a whole or PRC's debt?
No, it's when the debt that when we do the tariff from our end, whatever that the government asks, we do not include it to this one. But from our end, the debt that was outstanding was 976 million from the previous quarters. And this debt started from 2024, not 2025. So it rolled over into the 2025, which we took 50% off. And the other 50% we said we were going to take care of in the subsequent tariffs, which we have done now.
So I want to understand what sort of investment in the sector would you say will necessitate the extent where Ghanaians will be forced or will have to enjoy some relief in terms of the cost of electricity?
If I got it right, you're asking me if the Ghanaians would enjoy a relief at a point.
Yes.
Yes, because the 4 factors which you actually mentioned, if you take into consideration the exchange rate alone contributes about 60% of it. So when we use the exchange rate alone to run the tariffs, assuming we did not have any of these debts outstanding, would have had a huge decline in the tariffs. However, because of this debt, so going forward, if we don't have any of these debts, and we're able to take care of the fuel, a little bit of or portions of the fuel, and government also takes portions of the fuel up, we should be experiencing some decline in the tariffs based on the 4 factors, especially the exchange rate. Assuming you have the cedi still being strengthened against the dollar, because what the rate we used was 10 cedis, 30 pesos to the dollar. The last time around, we used 15 cedis, 69 pesos. So you can see there's a huge drop in terms of the exchange rate. So if we still have a stable exchange rate with the cedi appreciating steadily against the dollar and the inflation rate also dropping, we are likely to see some relief to customers. Mind you, this year is a major tariff year for the Commission. So the Commission will be undertaking a major tariff this year. And in doing a major tariff, we take on board both operational expenses and capital expenses. So all of this will come to play when we are doing the major tariff, and that will tell us exactly where the tariff will be in the next few months.
Okay, Doc. So if you look at the 2024 budget, you see that the major tariff review that you just highlighted, there are going to be additional components into the tariff build-up. So does all of this lie on exchange rates? If the cedi does not perform better or doesn't maintain its course, does it mean that there's going to be a significant increment in the energy tariffs?
There are other factors which are taken on board. We don't just look at just the exchange rate. Obviously, we look at the exchange rate, which is a major contributory factor. But government also steps in with grants. So assuming the Commission does a tariff which is way in excess of what will be applicable to, let's say, consumers, the government steps in and says, I'll give a grant of so much. So take this portion out. And that will push in consumers as well.
So there will be subsidies.
There are different factors which will come to play.
Doc, in terms of the water tariff, you indicated a freeze on it in your report. Was it a political decision or a technical consideration?
For a 0% water tariffs?
Yes.
Or is it just a technical thing? We did the tariffs, and if we consider just the chemical cost and the exchange rate, there would have been a decrease in tariffs. However, electricity cost is a pass-through cost for water. For water production, electricity cost is a pass-through cost. So if you apply the electricity charge to water production, even though the tariffs for water have gone down, it brought it up again because of the electricity charge. It evened out the decrease in the tariffs. So that's what brought it back to the zero. It should be been about 0.1 thereabout, but the commissioners just decided, well, let's make it 0% instead of just doing the 0.1 or something.
Well, Doc, I want us to stay on the new kid on the block, which is the cost of fuel. Because if you look at exchange rate, for instance, it drives how much fuel is sold. And so there is that sort of a correlation between the cost of fuel and the exchange rate factor that you said contributes about 60% to the build-up. So in this case where you have introduced a new additional indicator, which is the fuel cost, are we likely to see PRC slapping more tariff as a result of maybe exchange rate going up and we having to pay more on the fuel side? In fact, and also help us understand that what sort of negotiation did you go, in terms of agreement, did you go with government in taking 27%? Help us understand, how much are you taking in terms of the big blow? Government says it is going to slap once the additional levy on export price of fuel. Help us understand how much of the burden you are taking for us to be able to get money to buy fuel to power the thermal plants.
Okay, just as I said, we consider 27% of the cost of fuel. The other 27 less 100, government is taking about 73% of that. Okay, so what happens is that the government itself is absorbing some cost already. So the commission is only taking up the 27%. Yeah, so what's going to happen next is that government can decide that, okay, fine, for the 1 cedi levy, I'll drop it down to 50%, 10%, or scrap it completely. That is a government decision which is beyond the PURC. The PURC cannot dictate for the government on that one. It's a policy driven by the Ministry of Energy itself. So that, I cannot speak to that. And the only one I can speak to is the one that is within the jurisdiction or the domain of the PURC. And that we came to an agreement with the government and we absorbed 27% of that fuel cost into the tariff.
Doc, as the concession agreement conversation come to your table, and what is PRC considering in line of protecting consumers as well as ensuring there is cheaper access to electricity?
Could you repeat that aspect, please?
I'm talking about concession.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you
the
very well.
ECG concession conversation, the document, has it come to your notice? And if it has, how is it modeled to ensure cheaper access to electricity, to ensure also the sustenance and supply of power?
You mean the PSP? Is that what you are talking about? Is it the PSP?
Yes.
PSP?
Yes.
The private sector participation in ECG? Is that what you're talking about?
Exactly. And the concession one.
That is a totally different thing, which is running different from what we are doing now. When that one comes on board, the commission will actually take it on a different level completely. Because for now, what we have is ECG itself as a holding company and as a distributor of power, PRA as a generator of power, and GRICO as a transmitter of power, as well as the IPPs who are generating power. But we have not considered the PSP in it at all, because for now, it's not on board. Well, until we know the form that the PSP will take, whether it's going to be a full concession, it's going to be 50%, it's going to be 10%, we do not know at this point in time. Until that time comes, we cannot do anything about it.
Well, you made us understand that currently you are taking 27%. And this rate, help us understand, will it depend on the capacity of government to absorb more shortfalls? In a case where government finds itself in a fiscal position where it is difficult, is the PRC going to take more component of this fuel cost, let's say maybe 30% or 40%, or it will remain 27% for some time?
That I cannot speak to at this particular point in time. It will depend on the negotiations that the commissioners enter with the government. Whatever the commissioners or the PURC enters with the government and is agreed upon by government, that is what will be applicable. The Secretariat will only go by what the commissioners give us to work with. So the numbers that we come out with, those are the numbers that we work with, and then we will report to the commission for the commission to take a decision on whatever we are giving to them. Anything that we communicate to the public is that of the commission and not that of the Secretariat.